Welcome to Western New York, home of Niagara Falls, freezing cold temperatures, and the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are a franchise loved by their city. They have die-hard fans who jump through tables and support their team in horrible weather conditions, and for over 60 years, the Bills have put together some very talented teams. Teams capable of winning multiple Super Bowls. But year after year, a series of embarrassing mistakes always prevented Buffalo from winning that ring. It makes you wonder what went wrong, how the Bills became the best team in the NFL to never win a Super Bowl. Are they unlucky? Disappointing? Or maybe they're just cursed. Buffalo was once one of the most populous cities in the United States during the early 20th century. But after World War II, its industrialization would decline, leading half of its population to leave until something came along in 1959 that would unite the people: a football team. The Buffalo Bills were established into the most famous football league in the world. Oh, well, it turns out the National Football League had no interest in small market teams like Buffalo, so the Bills instead joined a newly formed AFL league made to compete against the NFL. A Detroit insurance salesman named Ralph Wilson Jr. was willing to become the owner of the team. He found a racetrack and turned it into War Memorial Stadium. The team adopted the name Bills after famed bison hunter Buffalo Bill Cody, and there was finally some excitement in Western New York. So Buffalo began their first season not so well. They weren't the worst team, but they were still pretty bad. Like in 1961, the Bills randomly said, "Hey, let's become the first and only team to play a Canadian football team." They also became the first and only team to lose to a Canadian football team. But on the bright side, in 1962, the Bills acquired one of Canada's top running backs, Cookie Gilchrist. Cookie became MVP of the league that year, and with Billy Shaw blocking and Lou Saban coaching, the Bills experienced their first taste of success. In '64, they won 12 games and played the Chargers in the championship. San Diego had all of the momentum until this happened.
Keith Lincoln, attempting to grab the swing pass from Rote, was cleared by Buffalo's Mike Stratton. A sickening thud, and now the Chargers are minus Lincoln and Alwood.
Mike Stratton's hit drained all of the energy out of the stadium. Buffalo went on to win the AFL championship back-to-back against the Chargers, to the interest of probably no one. However, it turns out that two-peat would end up being the peak of the Buffalo Bills. Benching quarterbacks, missing helmets in 13 seconds would end up cursing this team for the following decades. In the 1960s, the Bills were the best team in football, but it would all go downhill from there. Over the mid-60s, the AFL had grown a lot in popularity. In fact, they might have even been more talented than the NFL. So the rivals put their beef aside and merged the leagues together, where the best team in each league would face each other in a Super Bowl. The first ever Super Bowl could have actually held the Buffalo Bills, who were aiming to win their third straight AFL title. However, the Bills fumbled the ball on the opening kickoff, and it all went downhill from there. The Chiefs killed Buffalo and ended their dynasty. After losing the championship, injuries and poor management turned the Bills into one of the worst teams in the country. In '68, Buffalo had a 1-win season, followed by an even worse record a couple years later. Despite these all-time lows, the Bills were making a lot of changes. In 1970, the franchise officially joined the NFL, which means they have to step up their production. Okay, we need a new stadium. This one's turning into a dump. Good, so we're gonna need a new coach, someone with championship experience. And we're gonna need an offensive weapon, someone who can turn on the juice and make Buffalo relevant again. And luckily, thanks to their 1-win season, the Bills had the #1 draft pick in 1969. And there was just a guy out there the Bills desperately needed. A Heisman-winning running back from USC, a great rusher who would become one of the best to ever do it. O.J. Simpson. Every American should know the name O.J. Simpson, and not for football. During the 90s, O.J. was involved in a murder trial. All the evidence showed he did it. His fingerprints were found at the crime scene, he tried to escape the police in a Ford Bronco, and was obviously guilty. But after the gloves didn't fit, O.J. got off scot-free. However, some people don't know that O.J. played professional football, and was really good at it too. In the 70s, O.J. Simpson became the star player in Buffalo. His O-line, with Hall of Famer Joe DeLamielleure, was nicknamed the Electric Company. They blocked for running back O.J., whose nickname was the Juice. When the Bills turned on the Juice, O.J. became one of the toughest running backs to bring down. In 1973, Simpson won MVP after he became the first man to rush for 2,000 yards in a single season. That meant he averaged almost 150 rushing yards per game in 14 games. On top of the run game, the Bills also had a strong passing game with quarterback Joe Ferguson. Over his time in Buffalo, Ferguson threw for over 27,000 yards, second in Bills history. The Bills were a very talented team, who even reached the playoffs in '74. However, they faced the eventual Super Bowl champs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and got blown out. Sadly, that was the only time Buffalo reached the playoffs with O.J. Simpson. The entire roster fell apart from there. In '76, Ferguson got injured. Buffalo dropped to the bottom of the league with a 2-12 record, and stayed there for the rest of the '70s. In '77, O.J. Simpson was traded, and the Bills were back to square one. What Buffalo really needs right now is a game changer, so in 1979 they used their #1 overall pick to draft linebacker Tom Cousineau, who, for some reason, refused to sign with Buffalo and joined the CFL instead.
Bruh.
Anyway, the Bills had a quick spurt of success in the early 80s. In 1980, they faced the Miami Dolphins in their season opener. At this time, the Finns had won 20 consecutive games against Buffalo, yes, a whole decade. But they finally beat Miami 17-7 on the road to an 11-win season. Quarterback Joe Ferguson and coach Chuck Knox brought the Bills to 2 straight playoffs and even a postseason win against the Jets. But that was really it. By this time, Joe Ferguson was starting to get old, so Buffalo drafted a replacement QB in 1983, Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly would later become the greatest quarterback in Buffalo history, but in '83 he was left with a choice. Would you rather play in the freezing cold for the best league in America, or the warm sun for some trashy league we just invented a day ago? The Sun.
Bruh.
Because Kelly chose to play in the USFL, the Bills fell apart again, losing 14 games per year in 2 straight seasons. In '86, the USFL, surprise, fell apart, so now Jim Kelly has no choice but to play in the freezing cold. Also, the USFL's folding brought some new key pieces to Buffalo. Head coach Marv Levy and GM Bill Polian. These two were responsible for building the Buffalo Bills into a super team. So let's check out the roster. Of course, the starting quarterback is Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly was a gunslinger. He had very quick decision making and also some dangerous weapons at receiver. Kelly's main target is Andre Reed, a speedy receiver. This Kelly-Reed duo would end up becoming one of the greatest quarterback-receiver duos in the game. In the backfield is Thurman Thomas, another talented running back for Buffalo. Thurman would lead the league in rushing 4 straight years, on the road to an all-time Bills rushing leader. Thomas was able to dominate the ground game due to a strong O-line led by Kent Hull. This Bills offense was great, and the team would perfect what is known as the no-huddle offense. The K-Gun offense would move at a fast pace and keep defenses on their toes. And if that wasn't dangerous enough, the Bills' defense also had Bruce Smith. Defensive end Bruce Smith is the all-time NFL sack leader with 200 sacks, and an absolute beast. In fact, Smith is no doubt the greatest Bill of all time. So it was clear that in the 90s, Buffalo had the talent to go far. So let's see what happened. 1988, the Bills go 12-4 and are just one win away from the Super Bowl, but the Bengals beat them 21-10. 1989, Buffalo had a bit of an off year, with the entire team fighting themselves all season long. The bickering Bills even got into several fistfights in a disappointing early exit. 1990, the Bills sped up their offense, which led to 13 wins in a dominant year. In the playoffs, the Bills beat the Dolphins and then smoked the Raiders 51-3 to send them to their first ever Super Bowl. The Bills were in a great position too, since they were matched up against the New York Giants. The Bills and Giants had contrasting styles. The Bills led the league in offense, while the Giants led in defense. But after putting up 95 points in 2 playoff games, Jim Kelly and the Bills were heavily favored to win. Whitney Houston performed the Star-Spangled Banner, and they were off. The Giants faced the Bills with the game plan of taking time off the clock and limiting Buffalo's possessions. Coach Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick helped New York possess the ball for 40 minutes, a Super Bowl record. But that still couldn't stop the Bills' offense from scoring. In the fourth, Thurman Thomas broke 3 tackles for a touchdown to take a 19-17 lead. However, the Giants answered back with a 7.5-minute drive that brought the ball down to the goal line. Buffalo thankfully made them settle for a field goal, but they were still down, 20-19. With 2 minutes left, Jim Kelly led the team down the field. A mix of scrambles, short passes, and rushes by Thurman brought Buffalo to the 29-yard line, with 8 seconds left. It finally seemed like the Buffalo Bills could put their team name in the history books and win a championship. Buffalo has suffered through 25 years of mediocrity, with poor seasons and wasted potential, but now had their opportunity to make it all worth it. Kicker Scott Norwood stepped up for the 47-yard field goal for the Super Bowl.
No good. Wide right.
Scott Norwood's kick that sailed wide right was the closest the Bills would ever come to holding the Lombardi Trophy. Buffalo was no doubt bummed, but the entire roster still had belief. Next year. 1991, the Bills won 13 games again, and Thurman Thomas won MVP on the road to the playoffs. Buffalo knocked off the Chiefs and Broncos to send them back to the Super Bowl. They were looking to avenge last year against the Washington Redskins, but instead fell into a 17-point deficit at halftime. Their second Super Bowl ended in a 37-24 blowout, but that wasn't even the worst part. At the beginning of the game, the MVP Thurman Thomas couldn't find his helmet. The entire staff was going nuts looking for his helmet, which made Buffalo look like a joke nationwide. Well, how about next year? 1992, the Bills are in the playoffs again, but they're gonna have to go through it without their star QB. Yup, Jim Kelly's injured, and Frank Reich is starting against the Houston Oilers. As somewhat expected, the Bills were playing with no energy. The players felt hopeless about their starting QB, and got down 35-3, a 32-point deficit. But then the impossible happened.
Done dingy defense. Here is Davis, heads for the throw, and he makes it. Onside kick goes 10 yards. Buffalo scrambles for it. The Bills say they have it. No going for it at 4th and 5. Into the end zone, has a man, touchdown! Right to throw, end zone, touchdown! As you saw, it is right down the middle.
This incredible comeback saw the Bills overcome the largest deficit in NFL history to beat the Oilers. With new life, Buffalo stormed past Pittsburgh and Miami to reach yet another Super Bowl. But unfortunately, their game against the Dallas Cowboys was really just a mismatch. Buffalo turned the ball over 9 times, yes, 9, in a 52-17 embarrassment in the Super Bowl. Their best play that night was when Buffalo prevented 59 points from being put on the scoreboard.
4th down and 6, and right, fumble, picked up by Leon Lett. Can he go all the way? It's a 60-yard run. He's being chased by Beebe. Watch out! Did he get across? No, they are not. That's going to be a touchback to Buffalo.
There's no call yet, though.
Another season ending in disappointment. 1993, Buffalo ran it back in another solid year that sent them to their 4th straight Super Bowl. The first time, the ball sailed wide right. Second time, Thurman forgot his helmet. You'd think the third time was a charm, but the Cowboys just blew him out. And look who they're facing. The Cowboys, again. However, the Bills didn't actually get smoked in this one. Buffalo was playing with all of their heart, and they even led 13-6 at halftime. People started to believe that Buffalo might actually win the Super Bowl.
Continues to throw underneath. Thomas hit as he takes a hand off, fumbles the ball, and here comes the Cowboys. It's Thomas Everett with one man to beat Tina, and now he's on his way. Don Beebe, the lone Bills, touchdown, Dallas!
After that play, everything fell apart. The Bills lost all of their momentum and were stunned 30-13. 4 straight Super Bowl losses. Every single team in the NFL works their tails off at even just a chance at playing in the Super Bowl. The biggest game of the year in the spotlight with tens of millions watching. Losing a Super Bowl is heartbreaking, no doubt, but 4 in a row? Looking like jokes year after year after year after year? It makes you wonder if they would have just been better off not even making it to the Super Bowl. But you still can't deny the fact that the 90s Bills were a great team. I mean, no other team has accomplished what they did, 4 straight trips. But the fact that they couldn't even at least just win one is just sad. It makes you think, if Scott Norwood's kick had gone through the uprights, would things have been different? Instead of being ringless, the Bills could have at least 1 or 2 Super Bowls to their name. But I guess we'll never know. Buffalo became the joke of the NFL after '93. People would ask Bills players numerous times, what do the Bills stand for? Buffalo never made it back to the big game in the 90s. The closest they got was '95 when they were blown out by the Steelers in the divisional. A year later, the Hall of Fame gunslinger Jim Kelly led them to another playoff visit, where they were tied late in the 4th.
Kelly with all day, now under pressure, got away from Logan, lost the ball, got it back, and Jim Kelly trying to make something happen, he fumbled, Beasley has it.
Jim Kelly too, I mean he's limping, and he's down on the field now.
The Bills' home crowd watched their beloved QB get carted off the field and never return. Jim Kelly is considered one of, if not the best Bill to ever live, who broke almost every quarterback record in Buffalo, and Kelly's departure was simply the beginning of the end. Coach Marv Levy retired after some struggling years, followed by Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, and Bruce Smith being cut. The late 90s introduced a completely new roster, with Wade Phillips coaching and Doug Flutie at quarterback. Flutie became a very well-liked player by fans, so it was surprising when the Buffalo Bills benched him in their playoff game. Flutie had won 10 games that year, but had to watch on the sideline as Rob Johnson faced the Tennessee Titans in the wild card. With 16 seconds remaining, Buffalo was up 16-15 with a guaranteed win, until this happened.
To go, and a possibility for a play.
Dyson and Bird are deep. Taken by Neal. He gives it to Wycheck. Wycheck, that looked like a forward pass. Taken by Dyson. Dyson down the sideline. Dyson couldn't go all the way. And there is no flag.
The Music City Miracle will forever make Bills fans scratch their head for why they benched Doug Flutie. The Titans would reach the Super Bowl, and the Bills wouldn't make the playoffs again in 17 years. In 2001, owner Ralph Wilson retired and passed the torch to Tom Donahoe, who completely destroyed the roster. Buffalo went from playoff contenders to plain-out mediocre. In fact, in 2003, the Bills took Drew Bledsoe as their starter, you know, the guy that Tom Brady replaced. It seemed like Bledsoe might actually lead the Bills somewhere after destroying Tom Brady 31-zip in the season opener. Instead, the season derailed, and their last game of the season was against New England again. In the game, they got smoked, 31-zip. This would become the beginning of a common trend, Tom Brady owning the Bills. Brady's career record against Buffalo is 33-3, so every year the Bills had a guaranteed 2 losses. Anyway, in 2004, Bledsoe and the Bills would get off to a bad start. However, they turned their season around in hopes of a playoff berth. In Week 17, they faced a Steelers team with absolutely nothing to play for. The Bills were at home, on a 6-game winning streak, playing a bunch of backups.
Pittsburgh, 14 consecutive wins to finish the year. 29-24.
The following years were just filled with replacements, firings, and mediocrity. Players like Marshawn Lynch, Terrell Owens, and Ryan Fitzpatrick would come, and then go. All while the Bills maintained the longest current postseason drought in the NFL. 17 years. 17 years after the Music City Miracle, Buffalo became relevant again. A defensive coordinator named Sean McDermott was made head coach of the Bills in 2017. When asked if McDermott would rebuild the team, he said, "Trust the process." Buffalo had low expectations that year, but instead had a chance to secure a playoff berth for the first time in 17 years. They just needed the Bengals to beat the Ravens in Week 17.
Dalton steps up. Dalton throws. It's complete. Caught by Boyd. Tyler Boyd. Touchdown.
The Bills experienced their first taste of success since the 90s, but a 10-3 loss to the Jags ended their season. That offseason, they brought in a Wyoming quarterback named Josh Allen. Despite critics at first, Allen would develop into a very efficient passer and a great scrambler too, with comparisons to a modern-day Jim Kelly. The Bills clinched another playoff visit in 2019, and got up by 16 points to the Texans.
At a time like this. Here's Watson now. Blockers in front. Inside the 10. Lowers the shoulder and in. Watson, pressure off the edge. Watson survives it. And then checks down to Jones. Jones inside the 40. Inside the 30. Inside the 20. To the 10-yard line. Taiwan Jones. The Texans. Got it.
Buffalo realized they needed a weapon for Allen to throw to, so they traded for wide receiver Stephon Diggs. This boosted their high-powered offense to a 13-win season, with wins over Indy and Baltimore in the playoffs. One game away from the Super Bowl, they faced the Kansas City Chiefs, but were overpowered. The entire next year had the Bills seeking revenge against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, since they knew as the best teams in the AFC, they'd meet again in January. In the wild card, Buffalo hosted New England and played a perfect offensive game in a 47-17 blowout. They faced Kansas City again in what would later become the greatest playoff game ever played. The game was back and forth, but it seemed like Josh Allen and the Bills could pull it off in the end.
Allen fires it into wide open. Remarkable touchdown, Buffalo. Davis again. Down the middle, it's Hill in the open, cuts it upfield, he might be gone, he is! Kansas City takes the lead with a minute to go. The 19 in 17 seconds. Down the middle to the end zone, and there it is! Can't believe that defense got beaten up like that. To this here's Hill. They're going to have a chance. And we call timeout quickly.
They actually have a chance to get Bucker in field goal range here. Got to throw it right away, right now to someone in the middle.
Down the middle. Oh my goodness! It's going to be a 48-yard attempt.
So
hundreds of thousands around the planet. The kick is good! It's going to overtime! Looking to the end zone for the win! He caught it! Ball game! Chiefs to the championship game!
This is just unfathomable. The Bills had won this game. It was over. Josh Allen with a perfect postseason. And Patrick Mahomes somehow comes out there.
13 seconds. That was the difference between winning and losing, but the Bills, like they had so many times in their history, ended on the wrong side. Despite not being in the Super Bowl, this loss might have been the hardest one to swallow. The Bills' offense played a perfect game, but the entire season all went down the drain in just 13 seconds. The Bills came in the next year's Super Bowl favorites, and after Damar Hamlin suffered a heart attack on the field, it seemed like the storybook season to win it all. Everyone in the NFL was rooting for Buffalo, but in the divisional round, the Bills were stunned at home to Cincinnati, and another great season went to waste. Now, just last year, the Bills fought their way to a 2 seed, hosting in the divisional, again facing their rivals, Kansas City. The game was back and forth, but Buffalo failed time and time again to pull away. What should have been a comfortable win turned into the Bills down by 3, needing a field goal to tie.
The game on the line, he will. 44 yards, Bass.
Bruh.
No, he doesn't make it! Wide right. Wow. The two most dreaded words in Buffalo have surfaced again.
In 2024, star receiver Stephon Diggs left, leaving everyone to believe that Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills had missed their window. However, instead of giving in, Allen put up an MVP caliber season with 13 wins that brought them to their 6th straight playoff visit.
He's going to have time here, Jim.
Whole season for Buffalo on the line here. There they come. He just desperately throws it up in the air. Incomplete. Kincaid was right there. There is a flag.
And here's Kincaid's drop. Oh!
How about that pass getting there?
I can't believe he actually gave his team a chance. I mean, that should have been caught, right?
Right in his hands.
Normally, a franchise of some of the most devoted fans, lots of pride, and numerous Hall of Fame athletes wouldn't experience this much misfortune. It makes you wonder how they never won that Super Bowl in their 60 years, especially during the 90s. It seems like Buffalo has never recovered from Scott Norwood's kick wide right, since fans still bring up the incident over 30 years after it happened. Or maybe they were just set up for failure to begin with. Apparently, Buffalo's Highmark Stadium is literally built over a cemetery. Either way, there's no other way to describe the Buffalo Bills but cursed.